Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Sorry, whose voice was that?
Sorry, it's Aaliyah.
Oh, hi, Aaliyah. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
Yeah. Are you in the meeting room?
I'm not. I believe Tom should be working on setting things up.
Yes. Yes, she's there. She just let me know that apparently Alan is sick. Um, and so we may not have a quorum for the meeting.
Oh,
Um, I'm wondering if because I there was a little bit of confusion about whether it should have been at 11 or 11:30 this week. So I'm wondering if even if we get to 11:30, will we still not have a quorum, or is there a possibility that someone that will still have six members?
hmm. Um, yeah, I do know that the Office of Human Rights um requested that or mentioned that they had a meeting this morning that could run over and requested that we push it to 11:30.
Right. So that would be so if myself, Tracy, and Zach are there, and then Larry's late, but he's there, we would just need Jennifer and Jonathan, right? Isn't that six?
I believe so. That
Unless
sounds right to me.
Amanda.
I think Alan is Alan here?
Alan will not be.
I'm here virtually.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I can't be there physically. I'm sorry. I'm out sick right now.
Well, hope you feel better, but I'm glad that you're joining virtually. I understood that you would not be online. Whoa, okay. I also am not there physically. I'm getting yelled at by a 1-year-old. Two 1-year-olds, to be specific. So I'm just waiting for Tom to come onto the WebEx and we'll determine how to move forward. Proud of yourself. Okay, so it seems like folks were just in the wrong meeting room, and they are working to get switched over now.
Hey guys, so we're just waiting for a couple other people to join on us. They were in the wrong WebEx link, so give them a few seconds to switch over, all right?
Sounds good.
We're unmuted. And then I'm just gonna let you guys know, I'm gonna start the record button right now. Okay, you guys are live. Floor is yours, Derek.
Were we able to get OHR? Okay, sorry. Hello. Hello. All right, fantastic. Thank you all for joining us. I know there was a little bit of confusion on the timing of things. And thank you to Alan for being present, even though he's a little under the weather. I also, my mom is a little bit sick, so I apologize if I get interrupted by twins while I'm speaking. As a reminder, wash your hands and wear your mask. It seems like it's going around. So I will call this meeting to order. The Tip Workers Coordinating Council, today is December the 2nd. And let's have a roll call. Alan Karnofsky.
Did you hear me, Jared?
No, I didn't,
Oh,
but now I
sorry.
do.
Present.
Jonathan Cool,
Present.
uh, Tracy Javier, Zach Hoffman. Did he make it? Oh, there you are in the back. Hey, Zach. What am I missing here? Our new representative from OHR. Tell me your name. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll have to see it in writing because I've got baby yelling at me. Are you present? Sorry. Fantastic. I'm sorry, I don't have my roster in front of me. I didn't miss anyone, did I? Jennifer McCahill. You present? Is Jennifer there?
Jennifer is not here.
Jennifer's not there. All right, great. And Larry, Mr. Villegas.
It's running late. Okay, Jennifer is running late.
Okay. I believe we do have a quorum. We can start without her. Is that all right with everyone else? Fantastic. Great. I will open now. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have. Sorry. I'm going to open the meeting now for public comments. And in doing that, I see we have a guest joining us, Miss Fiedler. Do you mind just coming off mute and introducing yourself? And thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Melinda Fiedler. I'm an organizer with DC Jobs with Justice. Worked a little bit with Tracy, and I'm working with some TIPS workers in DC. So very interested in observing and seeing what you guys have to, what you guys are working on, and how we can work together.
Fantastic. Thank you again for joining us. I'm opening now for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to comment? I will take that as a no. There are no public comments. Let's. Looking at my agenda here. Okay. So our first item on the agenda, and I'm looking. Sorry, I see the review of wages on the agenda. I'm just I'll just go around the room. I thought, even though our last meeting was unofficial, we agreed that we had a pretty good handle on the wage cases and how the process of investigation works. I just want to go around and ask again if there's any comment or question about those wage cases, and if we can move forward beyond that.
Oh. If I close that.
Well, if there are any questions.
So there's no questions regarding the redacted cases, Chair.
Thank you so much. Excuse me. Our next item then, so we are, I believe, getting to the point where we are going to start to have to make official recommendations, whether those are procedural recommendations to DOES regarding their processes on tip wage law, or enforcing tip wage law, I should say. And I guess I'm just sort of asking the question for myself. What does it mean for the council to make an official recommendation that can be, I don't know, I guess reviewed by either the mayor or the DC City Council. Maybe Alan, this is a question for you, but I'm just throwing it out to the group.
Sure. I'm trying to, I don't have the legislation in front of me, but I know that it does say, yes, we as a council need to provide comments and feedback on the Office of Wage Hours process and policies. So I think that my interpretation is we can set up that process ourselves. So whether it is maybe like a formal written recommendation from this group to, you know, the Department of Employment Services, I think that will suffice unless, you know, people have other opinions.
Just going around the room for discussion. Any thoughts?
One thought, Chairman, I don't know how to say this without it sounding the way that it sounds, but I'm not sure the agency of which the policy recommendations will be given should necessarily have direct input in the process and way that we offer the suggestions of policy.
Sorry, Zach, I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean.
I don't think it's an appearance.
Uh-oh. Is their feed frozen for anyone else?
Yeah, it's frozen for me.
Shucks.
What are the recommendations?
We haven't made any. We're in the process of discovering the avenues of which recommendations are necessary and appropriate. And then at that point, it's discuss what potential recommendations are appropriate.
Are these recommendations be implementing program of the OES?
Process and potential.
Is there any way you all can move closer to the microphone?
You can give the camera a little further. You gotta come closer.
Yeah, where is the microphone?
It's on this.
It's on
camera. Yeah.
Plain blocks.
All right, Lincoln Long's been set up. Now try.
Jared, are you hearing us better?
Much better.
Okay, awesome. At what point did I lose you?
The beginning.
Okay. Fair enough,
Sorry.
fair enough. My comments were that the department or agency that will be receiving policy recommendations should, in my opinion, not have direct influence or direct impact on how the policy recommendations are made and how we make them and how they receive them. It's not, I believe, their responsibility to dictate to us how we make those policy recommendations.
So if I understand, they shouldn't be a part of the recommendation, but they certainly will have an opportunity to comment on the receiving end to provide their thoughts on what they think of the recommendation.
Input on the reception certainly feels appropriate, but
Okay.
making the recommendation should not.
Got
be. Said that better.
You have to say the third time.
Well, we got it now, so it's okay. Everybody wants you to.
Okay. I don't know if I could fully hear it, Zach. So, are you saying the Office of Wage Hours should not have input in the forming of this council's recommendations back to them?
Okay, so now I can't understand what you're saying through the phone. So,
Alan, I think that's correct. That's what I understood Zach to be saying.
Okay. Okay.
So I think, I mean, it could be, I could be wrong. Maybe it's not just this simple, but I think if we, in the process of either making recommendations and or figuring out how to make recommendations, we could always just at any point of disagreement stop and put it to a vote by the members of the council. I think that would I mean, I don't think I need to explain more. I think if we all just voted on any point of disagreement, then that should work itself out. Do you disagree, Zach?
Not necessarily.
Okay. So, okay. So I think that's Alan's initial thought, that official written statements would be the format with which we would use. I agree on that. I think in the process of deliberating about our recommendations, if there's any objection, any member of the council could request a vote. Those are two actionable items that we all agree on, it seems.
I agree.
Cool,
Yes.
great.
Yes.
Are there any other thoughts on this topic of how and what we should be recommending to Wage Hour?
Mr. Chair, for me, my thoughts on recommendations would be just how to, because the last meeting we had, not the official meeting, but the meeting we had at the OES, we discussed, I guess, chapter 13 in the code 32, which was talking about how each business has to at least once a year put in what is it called? Sorry, I'm blanking on everything, but like their training basically for sexual harassment and for wage law. So, but they have to turn in a certificate, but we don't know how they get to that certificate. So that's one thing which I'm assuming we'll kind of discuss. I saw that there was something in meetings for that.
We can address that. Can I?
Yes.
Jump in?
Yeah.
Remember that we reported that we built an user-friendly online form that is going to be distributed. We already have a list of approximately 1,500 businesses. Not all emails are working. So what we're doing is we're getting groups of 100 to actually send them the information on documentation that they have to submit to OHR per the law regarding having a sexual harassment policy, giving it to everybody, and also having it in a conspicuous place where staff gather. And then they're also going to provide us with a copy of their any claims, not the results. Important to know that the law says the number of claims made to management, and we can provide from that data a copy to the OES. So if they have in their platform a click that they can do, the OES will be able to see if they really did it through the documentation that we're going to give them. And then we're preparing the first draft of the sexual harassment presentation that is going to be given to the members of the working group for feedback. And we hope that mid-January, it would be laid out.
Yes. Okay. So I just want to stop for one moment. Let's hold on to everything that you just said, Larry. Tracy, the items, the two items that you brought up, we're gonna speak about in, I think it's probably the next item on the agenda. I just want to make sure we get this squared away in terms of what our recommendations are going to look like. My only final thought, if no one else has any other final thoughts, is to set for ourselves a timeline for when we can have at least one official recommendation published, if you will. I don't know if that's the right word or not. Personally, I would like to have something finished by March, for sure. And we can decide amongst ourselves what maybe the most, what's the word, approachable item might be. But I do think that we should have, to show that, you know, our council has been productive, a written item, an official recommendation completed by March. Does anyone have any objections with at least the idea of setting a date, or at least, you know, a attempted date, maybe?
Chair, this is Nin. I don't have objections, but I just want to offer up that, at least from OHR's end, as Tracy was talking, and if Larry hasn't done this yet, what OHR will offer up is, I'm a visual person, like to have everything in front of me. So have a table of what the law requires in one column, so you can have the code and what it requires, and the implementation that OHR has completed thus far, and what else is left to do. Would that be helpful to everybody to see? Okay, so we'll have like a little cheat sheet so that you all can have that, digest it, have questions, recommendations. So we'll send that around maybe in the next couple of weeks or by the end of December.
Which law are you referring to, or just any that we're attempting to address?
Sorry, I didn't hear the first part, Chair.
So which law, specific law are you referring to, or are you just saying any law?
OHR is responsible for. Just the part about the sexual harassment training and certification that Tracy was asking about. She was asking how businesses would obtain their certificates and provide the certificates, I think, right, Tracy? Yes. And how that would all come together and be collected and tracked, I think is your question. Yes. Right. So to respond to that, I was saying that for OHRs and with our responsibility to facilitate training, collect certificates, reports of, just sexual harassment claims and complaints, things like that, we're going to create sort of a one-pager or two of like a cheat sheet that shows what OHR's responsibilities are under the law, what we've done to implement, and what is left to do, and the milestones and dates, so that you guys can see as the council what recommendations you might have to the process to improve it, if any. That makes sense?
Yes, that makes sense, and that is helpful.
Yeah, so OHR will offer up that cheat sheet, as I like to call it, by the end of December, so that the council and members of the council will have something visual to work with to create these recommendations. So but that is limited to OHR's part. I know the law is much more expansive, but for OHR's part regarding sexual harassment training and prevention and complaints, we'll have that information.
Great. Do you think you could have that completed and disseminated before next month's meeting?
Yeah, I was saying we would have it by the end of December.
Great. Beautiful.
Oh, from the system.
Just one last time, any objections to March as a timeline?
No.
Fantastic. So on that note, I think what we were, I think, trying to figure out. So there's two pieces to the law that Tracy was speaking about. She referenced earlier, and we talked about with Mr. King. Is that the recommendation, or excuse me, the requirement? Yes, sorry, yes. The requirements are for DOES to enforce the law on businesses conducting sexual harassment training, but also training on wage law, wage theft, those sorts of things. So, I think I heard your voice, Mr. King. Are you there?
Yes, Mr. King is here.
Okay, great. Would you very briefly give that same sort of rundown that you gave to Tracy and I?
Sure. And actually, hello, everyone. I'm Mr. Daniel King. I'm deputy to Mr. Watts as supervisor for the Office of Wage Hour. And today I also brought our office paralegal who has recently joined the staff. And we have been digesting, go ahead and pull up the presentation, just what the requirements are from the Tip Wage Workers Fairness Amendment Act. That's the same act that created this council, and as well as a number of different trainings that are required for businesses that have tip workers. So go ahead and start the presentation. Are we sharing the screen with the viewers on WebEx too?
Could you see the screen, Chair? Chair.
No, I cannot.
Brandon.
Go back to WebEx.
Right here.
Then go to PowerPoint. Okay, go to slideshow. Close that as participant. Then show. And then shut the door.
Right here.
You guys can see that, correct?
Yes, we can see
Chair,
that.
could you see it?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Just go ahead to the next slide. So what we want to do today is just present the facts on what those two training requirements were from the Tip Wage Fairness Amendment Act from 2018 and what we have received in funding to make that happen. So I'm gonna ask Leslie to go ahead and talk about first the requirements for wage theft training, what that looks like in the law.
So the law requires attend either an in-person basis. It also requires managers of TIP employees to require an in-person training annual, and requires employers to provide the opportunity for all of the TIP workers to attend either an in-person.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You cut out right on the very first part of your presentation.
I'm sorry.
And yeah, so just before you go any further, do you mind just
Okay.
starting over?
I
Thank
will
you.
start over. So the wage theft training law requires business owners or operators who employ tip workers to either attend an in-person or an online wage theft training on an annual basis. It also requires managers to attend and in-person training on an annual basis and requires employers to provide the opportunity to their tipped workers to attend either an in-person or an online training on the wage theft laws. It also requires employers to provide certification of completion of training in compliance with this section by the 12/31 of each year.
And this is Mr. King. I just want to interject and we highlighted that last line because that's the part that we actually receive funding for, and we're creating a portal to receive those certifications. Now, in contrast, we're going to show you what the training requirements are for sexual harassment and how robust and specific those requirements are. So go to the next slide.
So the sexual harassment training law, it provides guidance for who's going to develop and provide the training. It outlines a specific schedule for attending training and providing certification of training to the Department of Employment Services. And it contains retention requirements for the certifications collected and fulfillment of all of the requirements.
Sorry, when you say Department of Employment Services, the law, when it says the office, it means the Office of
Human Rights.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
It's okay.
You can take over if you want.
Well, so we did highlight in the middle, the mayor may delegate responsibilities to someone else under the mayor. And we are in arrangements with receiving the certifications from OHR after they've done the training. So that's how both agencies come into partnership.
Yeah, we'll share.
So it also goes on
Next slide.
to outline the responsibilities of employers to provide a policy to the employees and also provides for a plan of reporting sexual harassment to the Office of Human Rights. So in contrast to the wage theft training law, much more specific and detailed for how each part of this operates and should be prepared. That's it.
That's it.
Very short presentation.
I had a question based on the fact that not everything was highlighted. That is to be assumed that not every part of this law has received funding.
That's correct.
So anything that's highlighted, it has funding.
So from a DOES perspective, I'm not aware if OHR has separate funding for the creation of their training program.
Yes, we have funding.
Okay.
So I can only speak for our
Yep.
space, and obviously.
And the funding received by DOES is only to collect certifications that training was done for wage theft and to accept the certifications from OHR for the trainings that they received or completed.
Regarding sexual harassment.
Yep.
When making applications, able to ask for more funding, like we build more funding is needed for either
Mayor, but yeah. Or the council. That's okay.
Also, one question I do have is that the law says that at least one training has to be done yearly. So basically it has to, or either or wage theft or sexual harassment, but I think both.
No, so the wage theft training must be done annually, but the sexual harassment training is on a biannual basis. It has to be done every 2 years.
The fact that we all know and we all want to say it, and so that's.
I think that's what this cheat sheet would be helpful. Their parts too, and have like, one will be sexual harassment training, the other will be wage theft training. Have it all in one place, so everybody can have all the information.
I guess what's tripping me up though is because it says at least one training on requirement. So is there multiple?
It's just saying that you have to have the opportunity to take the training more than at least one time during the year.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, managers have to take it every year, but they can invite their staff to take it if they so desire.
But do they have to offer it? Like, I know it
No,
says
they have to
they have to
offer it, they have to offer them the opportunity at least once a year.
And that's for both wage theft and
No.
sexual harassment.
Sexual harassment.
But it
Oh.
still has to be offered for them.
But
They have
it's
to start off
mandatory.
with at least one, and then after that, it's biannual for the sexual harassment. They at least starting out, which we haven't started.
So there are different requirements.
Yes.
We want to be clear, it's different requirements for wage theft than there is for sexual harassment. So we all, when you talk about it, you want to make sure you specify which training.
So then, Mr. King, just to make it really clear again, what part of the law about wage theft training is missing, for lack of a better word?
Well, so the question is, what part of the law is missing? It just requires the owners to do it. It doesn't tell them how to do it, specifics on what needs to be trained. And then it says that they have to provide certification. So on the DOES side, we're creating a format or an electronic means for receiving that certification, but we don't have any process of telling them that, yes, the training you offer is correct or how it should look. We just receive a certification.
Oh, the DOES is not designing the training.
The law doesn't require us to.
I think a very previous conversation with some actually testified for before it became a law, and I got copies of all the testimonies, probably like 400 pages, but I stopped at like page 150 because it gave me a good idea of what happened. Was that, and this is just a thought, it appears that DOES could just create a video or a presentation that people could see once a year, because it seems that it was important for business owners and managers to know exactly what the requirements of the law is every year. They cannot say, oh, I forgot because it happened last year. But that would be a conversation with him.
There is a lack of a funding mechanism that.
Yeah.
currently in the law.
And again, the only requirement to us is to receive the certification. And that's why that's the only funding, because that's the only requirement.
So then my next question is, does the Office of Human Rights conduct any wage theft training? No, but you do conduct that training on sexual harassment, and that's how you collaborate with DOES in terms of you conduct the training, they collect the certifications.
Correct.
But the
Correct.
certification, Mr. Chairman, the certification is a little tricky because I have read that part so many times. The certification that the OES, I mean, we can definitely give them what we have. It appears that there is a certification that they have received, that they have reviewed every year the content of the wage law, the requirements of the law, the posting of the not fact sheet, what's the word I'm looking for? My goodness, a sheet where it reads all the rights and benefits of everybody, like a fact sheet, exactly, yeah. Which I believe Director Nin had a conversation with the legal team at the OES to set up the language for the OES and the language for OHR.
Oh, yeah, are you talking about the universal posting?
Yes, sorry,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah,
universal
so
posting.
there is that third piece of this law, in addition to the training. The law mandates that we as the government, right, both DOES and OHR, create a universal poster that lists all of the rights related to tip wage workers. So rights related to wage, rights related to anti-discrimination, the Human Rights Act. And yes, I was in touch with DOES's general counsel's office to put that together. So right now it's sort of a little bit of a standstill, but I think we'll get to it.
Yep.
We'll get to, we had a good, I think we had a good draft going already.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of finalizing it, to make sure that we include everything that BOES has jurisdiction over. So it's just like in plain English, instead of listing out just the laws itself, just explaining what those rights are. You know, instead of saying you have a right under the Human Rights Act, if people don't know what that is, we would say you have a right to not get discriminated based on your sex, right? You have a right not to get harassed based on your sex, right? So that sort of thing.
Okay, yes, I understand that, but I guess my point was that there is no guidance on the training, and no one's offering the training. You're offering the poster, but you're off, and you're collaborating on the poster, but not on training. So it sounds like, to me, a recommendation that we can make is, for one, this law to be written out more robustly, sort of like the way the law is written out about sexual harassment. And then for there to be funding provided for someone to conduct this training. Does Mr. King, you agree with those two statements?
I have no opinion.
Because
Okay.
you guys can't really give an opinion on this.
Fair enough. Is there anyone on the council that objects to the idea that the way the statute written about wage training should be expanded in a more robust way, very similar to the way the statute's written about sexual harassment training?
I agree with you, yes.
Yes.
Everyone agrees. Any disagreement? No disagreement. Fantastic. Is there anyone on the council that disagrees with the idea that we should look into recommending that law be written out more robustly? We should also recommend funding to be provided to either OHR or DOES, whoever is most appropriate, so that training can be conducted. Yes.
So Chair, I don't know if I heard you right, but the funding wouldn't be for OHR. OHR wouldn't have the knowledge to do wage.
Sure. Sorry. Yes. Yeah, I asked you
People
that earlier. I'm
DOES.
sorry. Yes. Great.
Be for
Um,
DOES, or should it go through, I don't know, like for the training itself, go through like another nonprofit or something?
That's what we're doing.
Okay.
We're
I don't
just
know.
designing the training that.
Yeah, so just strike OHR from the question that I asked. If that funding goes to if we recommend that funding be provided, it should go to DOES, in my opinion. I hope the rest of the council will agree with me. And then whether or someone else, whether it's a nonprofit or an online whatever, to do that training, that's fine. We can offer our opinion or our recommendation on that later down the line.
I don't have any objections, but I would like to, see the written version of this before signing off.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we will collaborate on, hopefully, if we all agree. And it sounds like we do. So actually, Jonathan, I was going to come to you because to your knowledge, and I don't know if Jennifer made it. Did she make it? Yeah.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hello. You're not in the camera, so. Oh, hello. So for either one of you, what what sort of, so like, for instance, I know that when I get hired in a restaurant, um, either like maybe it's Safe Bars or maybe a restaurant like in a big corporation will have their own private company come up with sexual harassment training that is compliant with whatever the local laws are. To either of your knowledge, is there such a training, like say Safe Bars as an example, for wage theft and wage laws?
Not my experience.
Jared, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I need to go back for a second because whatever you said just before we started this conversation about Jen, I'm completely lost on what you were saying. I'm sorry. I have no idea what it is you were suggesting earlier. You were cutting in and out and it wasn't making a lot of sense.
Okay, so I'm just asking, does anyone know of any training on wage theft or wage laws?
Chairman, I'm sorry. Before this current conversation what we're having right now,
Oh,
before, I was trying to get your attention. It wasn't picking me up on the mic. I'm sorry. Before that, most of what you said did not make a lot of sense to me, and I couldn't very clearly understand what you were saying.
okay. So Zach, it's actually in like this fairly circuitous line of thinking that I have going on in my head. So if I can get the answer to this question and then I'll come back and connect it. Is that okay?
Sure.
Thank you. Sorry to be difficult, but my brain, it's just how I go. So no one can think of anything. Is that correct?
I'm not aware of anything, but yeah, I probably wouldn't be, to be honest.
You wouldn't be what?
Aware of it if it did exist.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, in my experience, companies just offer some sexual harassment training I've never experienced.
All right. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yeah.
I believe in my conversations with places like DC Chamber of Commerce, Metropolitan I remember. Yes.
Restaurant opportunity.
There are a few of the companies that represent some of the biggest restaurants or businesses in DC. Some of their lawyers have actually come to some of our meetings at OHR when we are designing the sexual harassment training, and I can facilitate the conversation between us and some of them to see if they have that portion of the law or in general in their training, because they were very interested in becoming certified trainers for harassment. So they were the ones saying, these are the regulations, this is what the law is asking, what else can you give us? So we have a meeting within the next like 10 or so days. I'm going to also send the invitation to this group so we can maybe have that conversation at that level. But knowing that is in the DOES jurisdiction because it's all wages.
And the Office of Wage Hour has participated in trainings and webinars. Most have been targeting employers, but there have been some organizations like the Mayor's Office of Nightlife that has done trainings where they invited workers to come online and hear information about all of the wage laws that we enforce. So maybe not just wage theft, but every wage law, a quick overview. Same thing with ROC and other advocacy groups. They'll set up trainings and we go over just a synopsis of all the laws that we enforce. Even have done that recently this past year with, is Leo on the line? I'm trying to remember the name of the group. There was a restaurant workers listening series, and they were inviting workers from across the district to come listen in on a number of different topics from sexual harassment to wage theft. They had speakers coming in from the Attorney General's office, our office, from OHR to discuss all the laws that we enforce. And then they provided back their comments and their questions of things that they were experiencing, or if they wanted us to look at, potentially doing random audits of certain districts or businesses, and the type of issues that they were dealing with. So it's not specific to the criteria that the law requests, because we just do an overview of our programs. But those opportunities are happening around the district.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was not on mute that whole time. I apologize. I want to ask this one last time, only because we do have Melinda in the room. Melinda, to your knowledge, is either Jobs with Justice or any other organization that you can think of actively conducting training on wage theft and or tip wage law?
I know we've done like some little one-off, presentations and workshops, but I don't think we haven't been doing them proactively or, to whatever the certification standards are. I also think ROC might do some, but I also don't know if they are like a certificate program or just kind of a know your rights public information training.
Great, that's helpful. So, I need a moment to think, actually. Sorry.
Chairman, I believe that
Yes.
the entity that you were looking for was the Office of Planning Food Policy Council. Because I remember DOES and OHR participated already in some of their talks.
Sorry, what's the name of the office again?
Office of Planning Food Policy Council.
And they conducted talks on wage law or tip wage law?
Yes, we did it probably like at the end of July or so was the first meeting that we all participated.
But they had listening series
Yeah.
for the workers where they brought in all of the issues and then they informed the agencies what information to present on.
Is that what we spoke about when we came to DOS?
So, Mr. King, through DOES, do you have, is there any, not about tip wage, just anything at all within DOES that trains and then certifies? Like, is there a platform for this sort of thing anywhere within DOES?
That's a good question. I'll have to follow up and provide some information on that. We have a number of programs, and I know that the agency also did a number of, and maybe Alan, I don't know if he's still welcome to speak on this, but the agency opened their doors to the public and let them come in for a series of overview of programs that DOES offers. So there are some things that agency provides training on. The certification piece is something new that's just being added based on the amendments of the law.
Yeah, Daniel, you're right. I think a lot of the certifications that are provided are via the actual program provider. It's not, not DOES providing the certification, but once our training providers, they set up the training and they provide the certification.
And Alan, can you give an example of a training provider in the sense that you're speaking?
Well, I'm thinking, agency-wide, we have various programs. So if an individual comes to DOES to be in one of our training programs, like Project Empowerment or the Infrastructure Academy, we partner with um, community-based organizations or with DCIA, which is our infrastructure academy, like PEPCO or Washington Gas, and they put on the training and they will provide the certification. Those are the things I'm thinking of off the top of my head, which I know these are not one-for-one comparisons to what we're trying to solve for here.
No, I know, but I wanted to ask that because it still speaks to what we need, right? So like, if DOES is responsible for certifying, we need someone to be able to conduct training. So I would suggest, and opening this up to thoughts, questions, disagreements, that we before our next meeting, try our best to identify community-based organizations in DC that could or would be equipped to conduct this sort of training. And whether that's employee rights groups like Jobs with Justice or ROC, whether that's the Restaurant Association or the Hotel Association, which is, well, brings me to another thing. And come up with a list of organizations that we may be able to identify, and then therefore recommend as a certifiable provider of this sort of training. I rambled a little bit, but I hope that was clear.
Jared, is there any specific people you want on the council to take that on?
You can do it.
Yeah, so I think definitely Tracy, Zach, and I will work together on it. But again, whether that's I guess I'm asking everyone, from, like I said, from whether it's the employee side or the business side, we have representation. So I'm asking everyone to identify, I don't know, I don't want to make it like a homework assignment and say identified 2 possible organizations, but it's sort of like that.
And then if we identify any, then we can share them with you.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yeah. So let's try to make it more concrete. Let's say we should come up with at least 2 to 3 quote unquote employee rights organizations. We should come up with at least 2 to 3 quote unquote business rights organizations, whether they're restaurant specific or not. I don't think, well, no, they should be restaurant specific. And then maybe room for like 2 to 3 wild cards. If anybody has any out of the box ideas. Yes.
So there are approximately 2,000 businesses in DC. And if we add to that the number of employees, we're easily talking about 30,000 people. That's why it has become a huge endeavor to create the sexual harassment training. They're looking for something similar for the wage law and this particular law. I think that we may want to expand our horizons a little more. We can begin smaller because it is a lot. And unless we create a video that people can, like the one that we just did on cybersecurity that has a way for people to know that people are actually doing it, we would need a lot of manpower and weapon power and day power, all kinds.
Yes, I understand. But if the law says that the training has to be conducted and DOES has to be able to certify it, I mean, what are they going to certify? You know what I mean?
Even if we were to come up with, like, say, a video, because that would be easier. Like, I know that there is a law that says that if, like, the hardship law or something like that, like, how can we get someone that would cite that to do the training if it's going to be basically online? So I guess that's the part we're trying to figure out.
Put that up on our recommendation. The hardship.
It's technically considered a library.
For your provider room.
I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself with this question. Obviously, anyone can do a training. We've probably all sat through trainings at some point in our lives where we just don't retain any information. So I guess my question would be, is it possible, I don't know with the law, like to have not an exam per se, but to for them to show that they understood the information?
Yeah, so the type of training Larry was referencing with our cybersecurity, there's like a little quiz at the end. Nothing is foolproof, but it helps.
Okay, cool.
And they can get a certificate, like, like cybersecurity, you have to get, I think, 80% to pass or something like that. So you could create 5 questions and have a pass-fail rate.
And it doesn't have like automatically play. You gotta click, go to the next slide.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna suggest that at least this second part, we table and look at future meetings. At the very least, like I said, I want to go back to being able to have something concrete by March. And so even if that is a written recommendation that says this statute on wage law is unclear, and it's I don't know, not finished, that we can have, and then of course, like Jonathan said, we write that out in a way that is agreeable amongst everyone in the council. I think that that's something that we can accomplish in the next 2 to 3 months. So why don't we continue thinking about this? And I'm mostly moving to wrap up because we're coming close to our 90 minutes. Why don't we continue to think about that in terms of identifying possible training partners, but let's at least agree to start to work on a written recommendation for expanding this law. Is that any disagreements on that?
No.
No.
All right, great. If it's all right, either with Mr. King I haven't heard him, so I assume that Mr. Watts is not present.
He's not.
Okay. Between Tracy, Zach, and I, certainly, but we will send out an invite to anyone else on the council, I would like to have another meeting with Mr. King and or Mr. Watts and whoever on your staff you deem appropriate to iron some of that out. And then we will get back to you all with starting to work on language. So Tom, if I can have you help me get a schedule for at the very least Tom, Zach, Tracy, Zach, and I, and then have that meeting invite sent out to the rest of the council as well.
Tom's not here. Sharice.
Tom's not here. Where did Tom go? Tom was here.
She had to step out.
Oh my God. Okay, great.
You got to know,
Well, I will
we're
connect
gonna
with her.
include Alan as well.
Yes, please.
Like to have this meeting?
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, this is Cherie Price. I'm with the Office of Wage Hour as well.
Yes.
I'm asking if there is a, do you know exactly when you'd like to have this meeting?
Prior to year end or to kick off the new year?
Ooh. No, before the new year, certainly. On within the next 14 days.
Okay. Got it.
Great. Okay. Any last thoughts? No thoughts? Thank you all so much. I know that, again, this was a little confusing with the time and the location and everything else, but thank you for your flexibility. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your attendance, even more so. I look forward to speaking with you all. We will send out also a notice about the date for the next meeting, because obviously a month from now will be right at or around New Year's. And so that could be, that's going to be tricky. So let's just look forward to an email about the date for the next meeting by the end of next week. Fantastic. Thank you again. Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Can we get the presentation sent?